What's up, everybody? Michael and Merav here again for day two of the Infinite Abundance Challenge. Today's day is Ask, and we want to start by saying thank you to everyone who engaged and watched and commented and, private messaged us about how much you enjoyed day one. So thank you so much. Stay tuned. This one is going to be a great one. This is day two. This is Ask. So the homework yesterday was to make a list of prior accomplishments and activations that you have activated in life, things that you have manifested successfully, because we're all great manifestors. We're always manifesting. The law of attraction are always working for us 24/7, whether we like them or not. So you do manifest things. You are a powerful manifester. And we're going to highlight that here for you today. So, Merav, what are some of your past accomplishments, activations, manifestations you want to share with us from yesterday?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Michael. This is so much fun. And it's so much fun looking at things because like maybe some of our listeners here, I'm always looking at what I have to accomplish and not really celebrating the past accomplishments. And so thank you for this and really keeping it me on track to say like, hey, you've got actually a lot to celebrate and to really feel really great about. So my whole childhood, when someone would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would say a stewardess. I want to be a stewardess. And that was like my dream throughout my childhood. And I would continually say that. And then eventually I got into high school and I had a guidance counselor who said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, an air hostess, a flight attendant by that time had evolved. And she said, well, that's good. You can do that when you're young. But like, what would you like to do academically, right? Because in school there's one track. And I said, okay, well then I want to be a writer. And she's like, well, that's good. But what do you want to do? Like the success of that doesn't come until you're much later. What do you want to do as your real job? And I was so sort of like taking the air out of my sails. But my whole childhood, because I had said I wanted to be a stewardess or a flight attendant, when I was in my first year of university, my mom saw an ad and called me and said, hey, do you remember how in your whole childhood you wanted to be a stewardess and a flight attendant? They're hiring right now. So I actually manifested a hint in there around your manifestation. So I manifested it, but I spoke about it. I spoke about it out loud. I saw myself doing it. I didn't give up on it. Against all odds, continued to say it so that the people who are closest to me can reflect it back to me.
Right,
And I went
right.
and became a flight attendant and absolutely loved, loved, loved that life, traveling around the world, taking trips all over the world, learning different cultures, different languages. Absolutely. And then fast forward, I was about 20 years into the career and started having these pinges, like these little hits of like, well, what happened to that other dream of being a writer?
Oh,
And so I started writing. I would go on layover and sit, in a cafe in Tel Aviv or in a pub in Scotland or on the beach in you know all over the world. Actually, beaches are some of my favorite places to go and write to get inspired. And I started writing and didn't kind of consider that that was going to be where I landed. And yet I wrote my first book. And then next thing you know, there was a contest by this publishing house, a spiritual publishing house. And I entered my book into the contest and I won the contest. And
wow.
it was like life is on easy mode. Like when you're fulfilling what it is that your soul has been calling to do, life goes on easy mode. And, despite that boyfriend back in high school saying that it wasn't a good job for a mom, I had three beautiful children that I'm a great mom, and I say that with like,
Yes,
listen, they're basically grown up and they still want to hang out with me. So that's a good sign. Right?
yes.
And I loved being a mom, absolutely loved being a mom. And so there are lots of, the books opened up the doors to speaking gigs and more writing. And in fact, the books also opened up that my daughter, when she was 9 years old, wanted to write a book with me. So we wrote a book together. which then opened that up to so many other doors opening up for me and her, and those identity shifts. Identity, like anchoring it in with those identities. I just mentioned that the only doll that I had that was sort of a Barbie-esque doll was a doll that was a flight attendant. Just imagine how much of my identity now became ingrained in that's the only of that style of doll that I have, right?
Right.
Like how much of those tangible elements, earthly elements, goes with these manifestations, these identity shifts, right? Like the book is a tangible book.
Yeah.
The doll is a tangible doll.
Yeah.
The children obviously are tangible children. So so much goes into celebrating those accomplishments. So thank you so much for asking and reminding me to celebrate those.
Yeah, it's a beautiful launching pad. It's almost like a foundation that we have to build. I mean, it's just wiser to do it this way, I feel, that we start with, day one was activate, realize your activations, remember your manifestations. Because again, we're all great manifestors, always manifesting all the time. The laws are always working all the time. It's like the law of gravity. Nobody's turning off the law of gravity. Maybe in some lab somewhere, but none of us watching and doing these videos are doing that. So having the foundation of what have you already manifested, you've already kicked butt, you've already done great things. What have you done? And then letting that be the great launching pad, the foundation from which we build future manifestations on top of. One author I like calls it the cookie jar. So I'll quickly highlight some of my things in my cookie jar. I also wrote and published 3 books. I also got into the hot seat for my very first Abraham Hicks workshop, and I got in the hot seat first, like the first person she called on. And my
Wow.
recording and my message and my conversation with her has been turned into 20 different YouTube videos by different YouTubers, and it's been listened to probably hundreds of thousands of times, helping people all over the world, which I'm super thankful for. I've manifested $350,000 as an investment into my different companies. I've raised over $1 million for different investments. I had a wedding. I'm divorced now, which was another great manifestation that went smoothly and seamlessly and easily with my ex. But I had a wedding that was 140 people, and we did it for under $30,000 in the GTA, which is unheard of. People are still blown away by that. And then I've become an award-winning public speaker, and I've done a lot of other really amazing, great things. Those are just some of the highlights. So those are some of my activations. I would love for people to share in the comments, what their homework was, what their greatest activations and manifestations were. And, we have to talk about, Merav, something that comes up that does happen as a part of this process for people when they're learning this process, when they're consciously learning how to manifest. There's something that comes up, and it's the ugly word that you're going to transform for us here today. Everyone knows it. It's called fear, right? And it's a natural response to when we go for things that are maybe outside of our comfort zone. So Merav, on day 2, we're going to ask, but how do we deal with that thing that comes up? How do we deal with fear?
Well, so being a public speaker, you've probably heard a lot of speakers, motivational speakers, inspirational speakers, giving the acronym for fear, right? Some people will say false evidence appearing real is fear, right? Like you're worried about something that actually isn't really there. There's not a saber-toothed tiger who's about to eat you if you invest in this cryptocurrency or invest in this house or ask for that date. Like there's no evidence of that. And yet your mind plays these tricks on you because of fear of rejection or like those ingrained fears that we have of caveman days. And another acronym that sometimes people say is forget everything and rise.
Yeah,
Sometimes people will say the same thing with a different F word.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Like just, F everything and rise. And those are all great, but the focus for those is the fear itself. And what I created was an acronym that was the antidote to fear, because we know that we shouldn't be looking at the fear. And yet we also know that the only way, like fear is actually a very useful tool. You're not afraid of something. Like there's no such thing as fearless. If you're living in a land of fearless, like as in no fear, as in the way that we use fearless, then that means you're not taking any chances, right? It's really easy to live without fear when you don't take
Right.
chances.
Just don't
It,
do anything big. Yeah.
right. I mean, the person who has, let's say, like who's a skydiving instructor may not feel any fear towards skydiving anymore, but they may feel fear to publishing their first book. When I was book coaching, I worked with a woman who was an incredible like legacy making first woman to pilot the U-2 aircraft, but publishing her book was monumental for her. I mean, that was fear because it was something outside of her comfort zone. So it's not about being fearless, it's about taking your fear and now flipping it. So that thing that you are most scared of doing is actually the indication. Joseph Campbell said the treasure you seek is in the cave that you fear to enter. So specifically there is where we need to go. So how do you know where it is that you're supposed to go? You find ecstasy, then ask and receive. So
One,
flip fear on its head rather than looking at the thing that you fear and trying to fear less about it. You actually look at what will give you ecstasy. You find the ecstasy, and then you ask, as we've talked about. We're talking about the concept of ask in this challenge that we're doing, and then you receive. Because in that vibration of finding your ecstasy, fear still creeps up and you acknowledge it because the ecstasy is stronger than the fear. Like the pull towards that thing that makes you feel so ecstatic is so much stronger than the fear. I mean, it's like they say, with childbirth, right? If 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 women actually remembered the pain of it, no woman would have more than one child. But the pull towards the ecstasy she feels after giving birth and holding her child, the pull of that is so much stronger that she overcomes it to have a second or third child, or, historically, right? Or the possibility of it, right? Because the pull towards something, that feeling of ecstasy is so transcendent that any fears that we have around it make it so worth it.
wow.
Right? Like the first time you fell in love or asked a girl for a date or got a kiss or
Right.
was so ecstatic that it made the subsequent times less like the
Wow.
fear was
Yeah.
worth it. And eventually you were less and less fearful. And I mean, I think that there's still something strong about if you're really feeling something for someone that you're still a little fearful asking them for a date or going in for the kiss or something like that, right? Like that makes
So,
part of the excitement.
so the acronym that you've rewritten for fear is find ecstasy, ask, and receive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the antidote, right? Like the other ones are descriptors, definitions, acronyms. Mine is the antidote. It's like
Ah,
in the
very nice.
ecstasy, right? Like you flip
And
fear on its head and find the ecstasy. In the ecstasy,
yeah,
you will ask and receive. Yeah.
so you've given us really something great there because I never knew I had never thought about that in that way before, and I've never experienced the pain of childbirth, so I can't relate. As a woman, you're saying that the pain of childbirth is so great. If a woman remembered how painful childbirth was, she would never do it again. But what she does, or what you've done, and what women do, is they remember the joy and the ecstasy of holding your child, your newborn, for the first time after it's over, that it's then worth it and that you're then willing to do it again. Is that right?
Yeah. 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 It's a great, funny little trick that the universe, the cosmos, and God, higher power, source, whatever you choose to say, it's
Yeah.
biology, right? Like we can even consider it
Yeah.
scientifically down to our biology. We have, we always say pain is the greatest motivator, right? We look to avoid pain more than to get pleasure, but there's actual proof in life that that pull factor, Like if you have experienced ecstatic moments, I mean, that's why a lot of people get addicted to drugs, for instance, right? Like they know it's going to screw up their life, but the ecstasy that they feel. And I don't want to take it down like a dark road, but I think a lot of people don't let themselves feel ecstasy for the things that they do or recognize, just like how you just asked me to celebrate my accomplishments. And I was hesitant to do it. I think we have, we're sort of bioengineered to look more for fear, and it really is a training that we have to do to look towards our ecstasy, to look towards the pull factor, and have that right override our caveman sort of processes to look for
Yeah.
the things that give us ecstasy, because those will point the opposite way of fear.
Okay, so today's day is ask. Today's day, day two, is ask, because asking is part of the manifestation process. It's part of the process for experiencing abundance. This is the 5-day abundance challenge. And day two is ask. So day one, activate, remember, realize your accomplishments and your manifestations. Day two, ask. So I want to share something with everyone that I don't think they'll hear maybe anywhere else. There's 3 different ways to ask. One of my mentors, a billionaire, taught me that there are 3 different ways to ask. You can ask for something specific, you can ask for something general, or you can just ask for the feeling. And I find these 3 different ways resonate differently for different people. And there's a bit of an advanced technique as well on manifesting and receiving dependent upon these 3 ways. So it's easy to ask for the feeling. It's probably easiest if you're starting out mastering manifesting and you want to master abundance. The easiest way is to ask for the feeling. Just be in the feeling. And sometimes I do that. This year, my plan really is to do that. It's just to be in the feeling. I want to be in the feeling of abundance. I am in the feeling of ecstasy, of joy, of a great life, a happy life. And I want to be in that feeling. And my main goal this year is just feeling good and feeling great and feeling ecstasy as much as possible. And then everything else will come in and life will deliver to you a magical, wonderful ride. That's the first way of just the feeling. The second way is general. Be general. So for example, let's say I want a new car. I want a new car. I want a new car that feels good, that's good on gas, that's good for me to ride, that I enjoy, that makes me feel good. And I just want a new car, kind of sporty, something cool, probably black or blue, something general like that. And that's a very good way for starting out in mastering manifestation. And the third way is specific. And specific is only recommended if you are feeling good most of the time, because you will get how you feel and you'll get the result of what you're putting out, the vibration of. So the third way of being specific might be, I want a blue 1994 Ford Mustang 2-door convertible GT with a white pinstripe on the bottom. See how specific that is? That's incredibly specific. If you do the specific way, it is less likely to come, in my opinion, because I've asked for very specific things, they've not come. They haven't come till much later. Sometimes they've come, but they've come much, much later after I've learned how to feel good and truly manifest this process. So those are the 3 types of asking and manifesting that I want to share with everyone on day 2 here as part of the Ask Day. Now, Merav, you've got something really cool to share with us about ecstasy, which is a key component. So please tell us about that.
Yeah, well, and I love that ask thing. And so many things were like zipping in my brain, going like, yeah, that time I asked for a car and I knew the dimensions I needed because the garage, my new garage has, certain, a wall here and just the way that I needed it this dimension and I wanted a sunroof and a moonroof and, all of this. And I didn't get specific in what kind of car. But then when I went to the lot, it was like, this one's a no, this one's a no, this one's a no, this one's a no. There's the perfect one. And right, I love that. I love that. If it had been up to me, I probably would have driven away with a Jeep. But I went to the lot and like the one Jeep, the engine didn't start. The other one smelled like smoke, and the other, and all of this. And then I ended up driving a Mercedes that had everything. And I would have not thought that I wanted a Mercedes because I, I like to me, it wasn't on my radar. And then now that I have it, I'm realizing like there's something about this luxury car that I wasn't expecting to know and like. So now I've clarified my specifics a little bit more. But I love that ask. But let me get to the what you said is the specifics is you you don't have as much success manifesting in the specifics unless you're feeling really good or vibing high, they say. Well, there's a lot of talk right now around nervous system regulation. This idea that we always have to be sort of vibing high or ecstatic. In English, we hear ecstatic and we think this, very joyful, alive, high energy. And some people kind of look at that and go, well, I'm not that. I can't be that all the time. That's not realistic for me. But we're missing something because in English we don't really have the word, but in Sanskrit that recognizes, like the ancient language, there's something called ananda, and that word ananda can be broken down into, it doesn't really have an English equivalent, but there's two ways to vibe high. One is that word ecstasy, like that we picture joyful, alive, really high, or that ecstatic moment when you're, walking in the forest and you see the sun crest over the hills and you're just standing there in awe. But Ananda can also mean Zen, bliss, because you can be equally vibing high in this state where just your internalized system is calm, is rested. You're not bringing in, carrying that baggage in from like, wow, why did kind of like, that guy text me this and I shouldn't I shouldn't have to put up with that. And like all of that mental chatter can be calm. And that is equivalent to the vibing high ecstasy that we picture when we say that word. Like the points of entry into ecstasy doesn't always have to be that you must be kind of like in this, rave like a dancing. And it could also be just a very calm equanimity, balanced state, a state where your nervous system, like you are just a magnet to all those things because you're just so calm within yourself. You're not making judgments around what you're going to find, right? Like the specifics of it. And then you start to be surprised. You do the ask for something that's a feeling and right? Like we've heard of the like be, do, have. Well, really the be is the only one in that. It's really the only one in that. The rest just comes by extension of that. So
So you're saying there's two kinds of ecstasy. One is calm, grounded, easygoing, settled, aligned. And then the other one is like really joyful, obvious ecstasy, happiness, glee, having fun in the moment, whatever you're doing. Is that right?
I love that you said the word aligned in the first description because actually both are aligned. Both are aligned because it's
Right.
really in that it's the alignment is actually the glue.
Yeah.
The
Right.
alignment is the glue
Right.
because
So,
because
yeah.
what you've gotten rid of when you're not aligned, there's a lot of chatter that looks like, well, I'm going to get a Mercedes because of the significance. Well, that's not aligned with your soul. Or I'm going to get the Jeep because I want to look like this identity. Well, that might not be aligned either. The alignment of who you are and what you want to feel is the key. So you can access that through, like, as you said, glee, joyfulness, like that inspiration, or you can access that through real groundedness, calm, equanimity, right? Like that feeling that people get at the end of yoga class, lying in shavasana, like, I'm calling in just all this peace. So yeah, those two are the access points to your manifestations.
That's amazing. That's so great. Okay, so the challenge for today, day two, ask. The challenge for today is make a list of all the things that bring ecstasy into your life. And you want to have this list, keep it, you want to write it down, pen, paper, and then maybe, again, like we said yesterday, transpose it onto something digital. I have this list and I regularly add to this list and I regularly review this list and I go through a lot of notebooks. There's one over there. And I usually do it in the beginning of every notebook as like the first page. Things that bring you joy, things that bring you ecstasy in your life. Because the key, as Merav said, the glue to all of it is alignment. That's the magic sauce. We're actually giving you the magic sauce right now on day 2, even though there's 3 more days and there's 3 more things to do and 3 more parts to the process. The magic, we're just giving it to you right now on day 2 because we believe in the abundance. We want you to live great lives, be in alignment, be in ecstasy. Ananda, Merav called it. It's either the vibrant, obvious joy or the settled, relaxed in the state of ecstasy. They're both alignment. They're both the glue. They're both the magic sauce. So do that. Have a great day today. Be well. We'll see you tomorrow for day 3. Day 2 is ask, and you ask naturally just by living. Okay. See you on day 3.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.